evening. Sorry about the view. My finger got in front of the lens. Yes, good evening, good evening. Good evening. Yes, this is Spirit Journey, and today is July 18, 2022, and the time is now about 9:46 p.m. Yes, good evening, viewer. Good evening. How are you doing today? I hope you didn't get caught in the rain like I did. Yep, I left my place relatively early this morning and I got drenched. And I liked it. You know, um, I kind of liked it. I haven't gotten caught in the rain like that. I mean, I got, let's see, maybe 3 months ago, there was a little rain thing, but I was under a tree. I was right inside the park, and someone gave me a little rain poncho. But this time, there was no tree to protect me, and I had to get home. It was wonderful. I loved it. Yeah, it thundered. It had lightning, boy, and my little dogs were in this stroller, and they were getting a little scared. But outside of that, I actually enjoyed it. I got completely drenched. Yeah, I was wearing jogging stuff, jogging outfit, the those exercise pants and shirt. Yeah. Uh, so I just took everything off when I got home, jumped in the shower, had a warm shower, and then jumped, got out. Yeah, everything was good. Yeah, I just stayed, had something to eat, and I just, was at my computer all day today. And so, yeah, I was watching a lot of content today. And what I want to talk about today, as you see in the title, I wrote, was it Religion, Jesus, and Magic? And in description, what's true? What is it all about? Is it real? So I want to talk about, why I'm talking about this right now. Well, two videos I was just completing watching. One is from a Christian man who talks about these current event stuff, and he's the one for like he studies events that happen, and he notices patterns and things like that, and that's his strength. But now he's recently introducing more, uh, about Christianity and humanity needs to repent, things like that type of talk. And then I saw another video of, and this YouTuber talked about um, magicians and illusionists. Um, and that spooks me. I don't know about you guys. Um, yeah, in this YouTuber's video, he shared clips of people who do magic or illusions, and I've seen the ones that he showed, and also people who do what is that? What did she do? Oh, she said that she gets visitation from ETs and things like that. A young girl, a teenager, and he deducted with these individuals um, that they may be handling, getting what they're doing, through demonic forces. Now, again, I don't know. Oops, sorry, my knee was in the way. Now, I don't know the answer. I've never met these people, but I don't enjoy watching them at all. It's something spooky about them, and they want to look spooky, and it seems like they want you afraid of them. And I think, metaphysically speaking, I think that these individuals feed off of your fear, and that's what helps them do what they do. I notice a lot of times with these magicians, they wear, they like to wear black. They like to have very dark hair. If they have light hair, they make it darker. And they always look like angry. Just something, I don't know, something with their eyes that really spooked me. And I've watched them some years ago. It was quite a while ago. It could have been maybe 8 years ago. I was looking on my computer. The I found something. I don't even know if I was looking for it, but I saw some content like that, and I watched more than one. I know I did. And I had to turn it off. I had to turn it off. It's something about these people that I don't like. And it's like, I feel that it's to bring attention. Now, everybody likes some type of attention, but it's like they're saying, look at me. And what they're doing, it, how does it benefit people? Now, they had this one, you know, I mean, I'm kind of making a joke about it, but it's just, it really agitates me. Like, they had this one guy. Now he's a tiny fellow, and he did, yeah, I think, yeah, he had sleeves. This guy had sleeves. He had his shirt on with sleeves, long sleeves, and he's showing his hands, and then he's pulling something out of his hand. At first, you think he's gonna like a potato or something. I'm just thinking, you know, but he keeps pulling it out, and he pulls out this giant um, bread. A like Italian bread. It was a giant one, and it looked soft and it looked fresh. Now, where did he hide it? I mean, he's a tiny fellow, and he has to hide it somewhere. So it's almost like almost funny, like I was thinking, okay, he could produce bread like that. Hey, he could feed the homeless. Feed the hungry. I think it's like, okay, if you have powers, what are you doing with it? How is humanity benefiting? But instead, people just watch him and in awe, and he gets off or she gets off. But really, no one really benefits but him or her, the magician or the illusionist. I don't like it. It's something it actually scares me. It scares me watching them. Or some of them, they could do something like they could walk, and then they do some like they could make the person that's in front of them, that they don't know each other, do what he's doing. Like somehow he was able to like walk, and then he went down on one knee, and the person in front of him does it. It was just so spooky. Yes, hello, viewer. Hello. Yeah, it was just too spooky. I didn't like that because it was doing something. If it was really a legit trick or whatever, magic, whatever what you call it, to do something against someone, outside of, you know, he didn't have permission to do it. To do something upon someone's body without permission is a no-no. And so I lost respect for that person. You don't do anything like that upon somebody's body, even though he wasn't physically touching him. But if he really had the ability, he imposed something on somebody. And I think that, boundaries, you know. So what about these, producing bread, or let's say an apple, or, you know, if he could produce that bread, he'd be able to produce maybe other things. Could he then eat it, and he doesn't have to, I mean, really, really, if this person could produce bread out of thin air, he should be able to produce a lot of things, and uh, he doesn't have to get a job. He could produce money out of thin air, right? Unless there's a food shortage, where he can pull out fish, baked potato, and a big pot, and he can produce his own meals, right? He's a magician. Yeah, he can produce a carrot, steak, uh, lettuce, tomato. He can make his own meal, and he just grab it out of the air, thin air. He created out of thin air, right? But see, they don't do that. They don't. The magicians, you don't see them doing that. They do something for you to see, and usually you're paying them to do it. And yes, there are things on YouTube you can see. Sometimes they're in public and they do something, but it's just so short lived. It's a short lived thing. And it really gives me the creeps. But look at this now. Okay. In the Bible, um, in the New Testament, you have a man that people call Jesus. And didn't Jesus make was a bread from heaven? He could take something, right? And then it was multiplied, or he created, someone gave him water, and he created wine out of it, and it was the best wine ever that was provided at that particular wedding. Wasn't he doing the same thing, right? Jesus, the character Jesus that is discussed in the Bible, in the New Testament, wouldn't he be a magician? He said he got his power from his father, who's in heaven, right? He taught people how to pray. And didn't Jesus say that greater things than these you'll be able to do too? He said that he told his disciples that. Disciples are like students. So wouldn't Jesus, his real name would have been Yeshua, Yeshua ben Joseph, but everybody knows him by Jesus or Isus. So how does that go? I know of situations someone had experienced something metaphysical slash supernatural, and the person wasn't sure about it because is it of God? And the person professes Christianity. So I asked the person, I said, well, um, if you're doing this, what's your intent behind what's happening? If it's just happening, you know, um, just enjoy it or something. But the person was really concerned, well, is it of God? Is it of God? Who is God? Who is God? If you had an ability, you had an ability. What difference does it make? I told the person, it's energy, and energy is energy. Whether you're doing it through Jesus or doing it through somebody else, it's just energy. It's like a knife. You can use it to spread butter on bread, and you also can use it to hurt somebody. It's the same knife. It's what you do with it, what your intent behind it. Because they say everything is energy, right? What are you doing with that energy? But the preoccupation of what's the source of it? Well, if you know you're not dealing with bad people, whatever, you're a good person at heart, and you wish no harm, and you have a special ability, embrace it. Embrace whatever natural gifts you have. Because what is good and what is bad? What I mean, what I mean when I say that, in biblical terms, you heard of the word, God and the devil, right? We all have heard those terms. Aren't they, the God and the devil, just adversaries of each other? Or what you call Jesus and the devil? They're adversaries of each other. Both of them have powers. And it's what they're doing with it. Just like, I'm thinking like countries. You have two countries. One may have more power or influence over the other. And it always seems like the one that is stronger is perceived as being the good one, and the one that's losing is the bad one. Yeah. And people are competing for whatever, and they make it like one is considered bad. If you, like politicians, if you vote for that person, you're a bad person. Oh, but this political party is the good people, right? That type of sentiment. And they both just compete. They compete against each other. But propaganda It's what's used today to vilify others. And it's depending on what side you're on. I mean, unless you're actually hurting somebody and your intent is to hurt people, then that's a bad person. But it seems like these days both sides are doing bad things. But yet one is deemed good and one might be deemed bad. But on close examination, they both are basically doing the same thing. It's just a popularity contest. Who's more popular? Who is more popular? And so in religion, there are different religions all over. Whose religion is considered good and who's considered bad? And people go on and on. Maybe one century this religion is good, and then another century the other one is uh, takes over and is considered good. I think what I would say, what is good, what's bad, what the intentions behind someone's action, and is if someone gets hurt, I would say what really dictates if someone good or bad. Because it just seems like a popularity contest. Who's on top? And now it's like, okay, with the other religious thing, the person I was just talking about, I mean, earlier in this live stream, this is a Christian fellow. He seems like a good guy. I enjoy his content. I like his numerology. I guess I call it like a numerology. He studies numbers, patterns, and he like he's very good at what he does, and he's talk about the current events, and things are getting worse, and it's like, okay, but Jesus says he's coming, the Antichrist. Now, now if the Bible is true, the about the book of Revelation and Jesus supposed to be returning. So why all the excitement and the fear that's being promoted a lot in the Christian movement? Let me explain. I mean, again, if a religion serves you, then you serve it. But I ask myself, okay, now Jesus, if in the Bible it's promised that he's returning, so just sit back, relax, and just wait for him to return. But it's like they make you afraid. And I feel that they're using fear that, oh, the Antichrist is coming to take over. There are people taking over things now. You have gangs, gang warfare. You have one group lording over another group. You have governments that lord over other groups. You have spouses that lord over one another. So it's a world phenomenon. So how is this going to work with Jesus / Yeshua ben Joseph? How is it going to make things better? I mean, they did talk about in the Old Testament, I mean, in the New Testament, about a street made out of gold. He's preparing a place for people who follow him. Now, if he's really a good guy, wouldn't he prepare a place for everybody? If this is God, doesn't he care about everybody? But you have to profess his name and you got to go to church. I used to go to church and I used to be a Christian for, um, I might have been maybe 20 years old when I was introduced to Christianity. And I left it in my 50s, my early 50s. And so I used to be a Bible reader. I loved reading Genesis and the book of Revelation. Those are my favorite books. But I got, how do you say, a paradigm shift in 2014, late 2014. And just a couple of years after that, I officially rejected Christianity. I am being very honest with the people here. So, I used to go to church and I did things that I thought were to be good. I wanted to be a good person. I wanted to do good things. Why is it when you're trying to do good things, bad things happen to you? Why is that? And why does it seem that the people who aren't Christian, people, anybody can go to church. And some of the worst people I know are people who go to church, go to religious places. And people who, what you call devils go to church. There are things that happen in churches that is evil, exploitive. But if religion serves you, you serve it. It is a tool. It's a place where you can meet people. But to say that, well, you have to be a member. How do you become a member of Jesus or of God? How? By going to a building? Or is it your lifestyle? Your lifestyle. How do you conduct your life? Are you a thief? Do you steal from people? Do you charge extra extra money for certain people? Do you give them back the wrong change on purpose? Are you a doctor and you know that giving that medication to that patient is going to kill them, but you give it to them anyway? These are just some things that you have to ponder. What guarantees that Jesus will accept you? How? How do you know? Because you became a member, or your parents a member of a particular denomination? How does that guarantee anything? You really can't tell the difference between a holy or an unholy people in the church versus outside. And anyone can wear certain clothing and cloak themselves with what they call righteousness. Having a long dress doesn't make you a good person versus wearing a shorter dress. There's some cultures that don't wear any clothes, and it doesn't mean a damn thing. And you have people in this society where I live, wear have clothes on, but it looks just it looks what do you call provocative, and it's so what is it? The person with the no clothes, but they live in a hot climate. They're not using their bodies in a negative way. And for them, they're decent. They're decent people. And then you have people who, again, wear some clothing, but they could be total, you know, um, needs to be desired. There are different things that people could say what might be considered holy or goodly. But you have a whole planet, and people have different ways of conducting their behavior. Who's to say? You have different religions. If you have one God, how is it that that it's not one religion if it's one God? What would make God not share the same information to everybody? If there's one God, then isn't one requirement? Then it should be universal, and it's shared. Why isn't God sharing the rules and regulation? There are different religions out there. There's different scriptures out there. And if Jesus is coming back, why didn't he come back earlier? In his word, it does say he's coming back soon. 2,000 years, I don't think that's soon. It's about 2,000 years. When is he coming back? Why even bother after 2,000 years? Why isn't it discussed what the system is going to be like upon his arrival? What type of jobs will we have to do? Are we going to have the monetary system? Are we going to have banks and then charge interest? What about food? What about medicine? Or are we going to have what they call astral bodies? I know you. I really start to ask this, and again, it's using fear. It's interesting. These two YouTubers. I've been watching them. You know, one of them in particular for maybe 2.5 months. Um, but now they both seem to be like really uh, slowly really introducing a whole, a Christian movement thing. Um, come to Christ, and I don't feel comfortable with that. It's like you're only gonna come to something to Jesus because something bad is happening. Something bad is always happening on this planet. You should want something because you want it, not because you want to avoid punishment. I don't understand why God would want to punish his children. There are people who are targeted from the very beginning in their lives. They do the best they can, and life has done things to them. could I, how could I prevent, I mean, how do you work around this? How do you work around that life happens to certain people? Life happens. You didn't look for trouble, but sometimes trouble happens to individuals. I just find it more and more hard to really um, understand where religion really plays in this. I find it exploitive. I find religion exploitive. It's like you be a member of my religion and this God will, will provide for you. But this God's supposed to be the creator, right? So you're going to show favoritism. I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. How is God going to know metaphysically who was a good boy, who was a good girl? How are you going to know? So many different religions. And they say that there were religions that came, scriptures that came before the Bible. And yet people who practice those other religions that came before the Bible, didn't God have a central religion from day one? Written requirements? I mean, if you walk through life and you never hear about God or know God, wouldn't a real God of a system ensure that everybody has the same information, the same opportunities? There are people, they don't have the same opportunities. There are people out there who don't have food to eat. There's no food in some places. Some places the work is so hard. I think I'm really starting to wonder what really happened on this planet. I think there was a war, a major, major catastrophe. And people of high knowledge were introduced to various um, communities and excelled. And they go around the planet seeking who they want to devour. They have technologies. I'm hearing that even more people that you have a whole galaxy that's inhabited by people, by beings. So what about God there on those other planets? It doesn't make sense for Earth to be the only life force. And I'm hearing more and more that there's going to be a disclosure. There's soft disclosure in some movies. I think it's a big world out there. And you had something that was introduced to the planet, and they watch over us. And they control us. They control all what we do. You have remote viewers who study about religions and what happened in human history. And they shared information that you had beings from other worlds or galaxies. And they benefit by intercepting population groups. And there also seems to be a genetic component to it. You look on the planet here, who's really doing better on the planet? It seems like those people who, I have to be very careful how I word this. I mean, if you created a religion, let me word it like that. Thank you for giving me the thumbs up. Yeah, if someone created a religion, wouldn't they be the one, and then they imposed it on you? Wouldn't those people who it originated from have better opportunities? So you have people who control what you read, and they seem to have control over a lot of things on this planet. The banking system, um, education, um, mobility, social mobility. There are religions that forbid people, women in particular, to do certain things. And if you read in the scriptures, if you just read it for what it is, for one thing that you read within the scriptures, that there's a distinction between men and women and how to treat men and women. And women are treated in a negative way. So it's no wonder that in societies, men do better. So if you have a literature that says this is the truth, and you know men are to have certain types of work or businesses, and it will always be they're being catered to. Who has it harder on this planet, men or women, financially? So you have a system that was written and it's being exploited. It exploits women. You have things in scriptures that people of certain nationalities are considered inferior because they're considered cursed. All these things are man made, written on paper by people. And I don't think any supernatural God wrote anything on a piece of paper. Why would a God say, you got a curse on you, but this other group, they're better off, they're better than you? That's not a true God. Showing favoritism like that, extreme favoritism, I don't know. You have to really start thinking. Yeah, I don't want to belong to something out of fear. Or now spreading the word because they're afraid. It's a big world out there. And you really have to start analyzing the people. Like, when you really look at the people on this planet, what you call, the word primitive means primary, like the first. But you see how it has a negative connotation. You're the first one, but they call you primitive. And it just means primary, means the first. But it has a negative connotation. So being first is considered inferior. But anyways, if you were the first, Why aren't you thriving? You see the nations that are thriving on this planet. The number one country I was told of visitors from all over the world, the country that's visited the most is, get this, the country of France. And then I think Spain. Now, what did France do? I mean, how did it get so popular? Well, one thing, they had colonies all over the world, and with that, they had slavery. And they got extreme wealth from the process. The nations that seem to do well are the ones historically had um, corrupted um, things in the Bible. So, what is it? I mean, just look. Look in the United. Now, I love my country. I live in America. But look at the people. Who in general does very well? And if we're under the same God, why is such a disparity in wealth? I was watching this country in this video on this country in Africa, and I looked at that. I mean, I'm no one to judge. I am no one to judge, but it had me thinking. Haven't they been there for thousands of years? And why do they seem to act like everything is new to them? I don't understand it. I don't understand how someone living on this planet for so long and not have the techno savvy. Things like getting water. They have these plastic jugs, and I know I wouldn't want to drink out of that jug. It looks like the same type of jug that they use to put gasoline in it. So the type of plastic, I mean, some plastics you shouldn't drink out of because the water will leach out the toxins that are in that plastic. But every day, and they have the women do this job. Every day they have to go down a steep hill, gather water at the creek, and then go back uphill. And then I start asking questions. How is it that they um, I don't understand why the savviness. Again, I'm no one to judge. I'm just asking questions. What makes some nations so savvy? How does people like Leonardo da Vinci or Nikolai Tesla, these type of individuals, how is it they were able to just seem to navigate and discover ways to, to invent things that would be an asset to humanity, like of energy. Like Tesla discovered a way of tapping into the ether to extract energy. How is it? What, see, what I think is the earth was invaded a long time ago. And interbred with certain peoples already here. And those people that follow these newcomers have the techno savvy, or somehow got the information how to live, how to improve livelihood. But it's like almost global. You have Western Europe in particular that's doing overall, pretty good. And then you have places like Saudi Arabia, and they're thriving. And you have other nations on the planet, and they work hard. Have any of you ever been told, if you work really hard, you'll become something, or you'll have money and this and that? Now, these people in the country that I was looking at, they're hardworking. They are workers, physical workers, but they were given like the ability. Oh, I'm losing thought. I'm sorry. They they're not thriving. I mean, the people who um, the people who, it seems like the people who got connected, I should say, the people who got connected with the characters in the Bible seem to be thriving, and everyone else, they all work hard. I mean, most people work very hard for their bread, physically hard. Yeah, I remember. Some of us, we're told you work really hard and you become something. You work really, really hard, you make money. I used to work in the West Indies. And you find people in these regions, they work longer hours and more physically demanding as well. But they're not thriving. And then you compare, let's say, certain places in Europe or the US. They don't work as longer hours, some of these people, but they make more money and they have more um, comforts of living. But you're there, told your problem is that you're not working hard enough. Most people work very hard, and working hard has nothing to do with wealth. There are a lot of variables. And then I start asking myself, with these different countries in Africa in particular, um, I would imagine, like, if you compare rural Africa, rural areas, they might have been living that way for hundreds of years. But look at everywhere else on the planet. Let's say that, just go back, let's say 500 years ago. They didn't have electricity like how we have it now. People lived off the land. People lived off the land. They didn't have factories. They didn't have running water, plumbing. They were living the same way how indigenous people around the planet live. It was no. It doesn't mean that they were poor. They are people that just live. They live off the land. They respect the land. These people live in close in closeness with the land that supports them. They don't abuse the land. But you go in societies like where I live, and did you know they use these fertilizers that are toxic, that hurts the planet? But yet they have what they call civilization. But civilization seems to be killing us slowly. Yeah, 500 years ago in Europe, where were they? You could compare them. They're probably both all doing the same thing, and they weren't called poor. They were just people living off of the land as farmers. More like in the U.S. Before World War II, I was told that about 70% of the people living in the United States lived on farms. 70%. But after the war, after World War II, slowly things change. People, most people do not live on farms. Most people now live in urban centers. Most people live in urban centers or suburbs. And you're dependent on someone else bringing your food to you. This civilization thing is costing people because if that system fails, millions of people are affected. But when people are connected to the land, and if you live in a in balance, you're not going to have people all cramped in one area. You be spread out. But now they want you to be in cramped urban centers. And your ability to get resources are limited. Is it really a better system? Yeah, they fooling the people on this planet to think a certain lifestyle is better. These people in these countries in Africa, rural Africa, probably has always been living the way they are, and but we call them poor. And I start to think, is it fair to say that? Because people live like this on this planet, probably the majority of our time on this planet, all over the planet. You lived off the land and you lived in harmony. And you knew about the different cycles of the seasons. But now we're losing connection. We're losing connection with how to live. And these nations in Africa, the rural areas, you notice when you buy any of their products, they say, "Oh, the fair trade, fair trade." So it's assumed so it's the idea now that why they say that is because many of them aren't getting fair trade. Why aren't they getting fair trade? Who's behind it? They work just as hard as other areas, but it doesn't work for them. The system doesn't really work for them. You just really got to think. It's like, wow, you're working so hard and you're working hard for somebody else. But I say, labor is labor, people. Labor is labor. These same people are making money for somebody else while they get pennies. If labor is labor, can't they produce that labor for themselves and reap the joys of their own labor? What is holding them back? And I think that's the real secret behind about religion, about magic, and what was the other thing? Religion, magic, and Jesus. You have people who follow religions and are faced with poverty. And they could be good people. They could be really nice. I used to work in this. I worked in many many industries, but I used to work in banking, investment firm, and I worked in their legal department, like yeah. I worked in the legal section, and they were made money. The lawyers there, they made money. So, oh, what was the point I was bringing out? Yeah, they make money, and they don't work any real harder than anybody else in Africa. But it happens. They create. I mean, like in Western society, they create different types of jobs. They create in America industries, and then somehow these industries are so intertwined in society, and are dependent. After World War II, people started moving away from farms and moving into big cities, and then they started to create industry. What do you call it? A manufacturing. They manufactured cars, and then they made what they call the suburbs. And in those suburbs, they don't have sidewalks. There are areas in like upstate New York, they don't have sidewalks. They don't have, and they did that deliberate. They don't have sidewalks. The streets are paved nicely. And then they designed it so that to get your food, you have to go away to a supermarket that's far away to get your food. And now you're dependent on this car because you're forced to get jobs away from your community. They might have it that, okay, you have a place for residents and a place for a business district, and you're not allowed to overlap the two. You have to keep them separate. So it's forcing you away from your home, away from your family for hours. The children have to go to what they call public school, and so they're not being um, taught, you know, they're not the ones that has the primary influence over the kids, but the school. So I think really that this new system is really not benefiting anyone. I mean, not the masses. It's not benefiting the masses. They're forcing us, And then they're manipulating us now with having things being put on our bodies. You have to get an injection, and it's supposed to prevent something from happening. If something is airborne, it cannot prevent you from inhaling any of those pathogens, not even the facial mask. What about your eyes? We're being fooled, people. We're being fooled about, they're scaring us. They're trying to scare us because they want to do a takeover. They want to exploit your labor. They're trying to enforce a new type of governance now with, socialism, communism. You notice those places that use that type of stuff, communism especially, um, they don't do well. But and now it seems like they want to impose it on the U.S. They're slowly imposing more restrictions. Who's benefiting? I think those same people who invented these Bibles and the stories in them are the ones who are imposing these new requirements over your life. And it's one big mess. You're an indigenous person on the planet, yet you're struggling, you're starving. And then people who are new on this planet, or the hybrids, somehow they have dominion. They create a Bible or scriptures, and they put their name on it. And they attribute the goodness that the Bible, so that certain scriptures have, to themselves. Well, if you're claiming you're writing and you're the star of the show, that's why you're making out a lot of money. You're saying you're God's chosen person, and you're scaring other people to follow along because they don't follow the word. Oh, you're doing a bad thing. Wow. Yet there are plenty of people who work very hard. And I had the opportunity to see places that they work hard and they go to church too. They go to church for hours. This is a real major scam, it seems. You're in there for hours. You might go more than one day a week. It's to siphon your energy and your money and your resources. Whoever who controls the religious systems are the ones who do well. Look at the Vatican. Do you ever see them give people money? They're the richest, I think they're one of the richest churches, or denomination, or religions. I think they're the richest religion on the planet. There's no real accountability in them. It's just something, food for thought about all these things. What's real? So I already talked about that. There are people who practice, the religions, different religions. but they're not thriving, but someone else is. So, how does this God system work? How does it work? How does it? So God is going to decide for some people to flourish and others not. It doesn't seem logical to me. Oh, and yes, what I was saying earlier, you have about the magic. That's what there's the magic component in all this. And the two of the YouTubers were saying, hey, be careful because some of these things is all about magic, and that it's not good magic. But what did Jesus do? Wasn't Jesus the master magician? I was told there's literature about him that he went to India and other places and he learned the art of Reiki and other stuff. Wouldn't that be something if that were true? Wouldn't that be something? Who was Jesus? Was he the magician? And so, um, how is it that what he does considered good? And if someone's going to do the same thing, they'll be considered having a demon. What are demons? We've all heard about them. Is it just one faction against another faction? What makes people good and what makes other people bad? It's all over. The church isn't spared of things that are bad. It doesn't protect it. There are a lot of evil things that happen in the house of worship. Well, I don't know what else to say. You guys have been pretty quiet. Really, you have to ask yourself these questions about religion, about magic, and I think I mentioned Jesus. How do they all play? How do you benefit from this system? Especially if you are an indigenous person on the planet. You work just as hard or harder. How do you thrive? These are very important questions to ask. So, those are my thoughts for the moment. Yeah, if someone knows how to do that magic, so they could make their own bread. That YouTube video, real tiny guy, and he pulls out a giant, um, like a Italian bread. It looked about 2 feet long, man. Where in the world? Yeah, is Jesus coming? Or Yeshua ben Joseph? When is he coming? And how come he's not preparing us for his kingdom? What are we going to be doing in his kingdom? Those who are selected. Okay, what is paradise? There are people that live all over this planet. Some live in deserts, and they might be quite happy. Some live in temperate zones, like here in New York City, and others live in equatorial areas where it's very hot. Where they're going to be living? Are they going to get married? Are they going to be having children? Or are they going to be spirit? Why isn't this God preparing us for the next phase of his um, his domain? They really don't give that much clues. They just said, the streets made out of gold. And so what are you going to be doing on those streets? Or are we going to be magicians in heaven and have abilities to create your own food out of the air? Remember, Jesus supposedly went up in heaven. Now, if he went up in heaven the way he did that the scriptures say, wouldn't he be? He wouldn't be able to breathe up there because the air is very thin up there, right? So how do you get to breathe? You got to ask yourself these questions. Is heaven here on this planet, or is heaven in another place? Yeah, this is food for thought, people. Food for thought. Live on a planet that you can work just as hard as somebody else and you don't have the same outcome. Some people are targeted. But he was using the word demon. That some people, they have demonic influences, which could be true. That could be true. But where's the power of God? If God is everywhere, why isn't it being fixed? I don't know. So this is just food for thought. And it'd be great that we could make heaven here on earth, and to love people, and to live in a God, to feel, make this your heaven, that this is paradise for you. Make this world a better place for you. Help out other people. So I thank you for this. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. And again, this is not about poo-pooing one's belief, but ask yourself, how is this belief serving you? And what about these other abilities? Jesus performed many miracles, but they don't call it magic. Why don't they call it magic? So is Jesus bad? You would say, well, no, because he's the Father, or well, if God is, those other people would be getting from the same source. I don't know. Yes, people, life is something, and life is more complicated than you could imagine. Yeah, this is your planet. This is your home. And I'm just saying, assert yourself. That your greatness is in who you are as a human being. Not about what religion you practice. We're all human. And many, many years ago, we all pretty much were in the same boat. We all fetched our own water. We planted our own crops. But something interfered, and it's producing this, what we call civilization. Civilization is not a natural system. The banks, it's not a natural system. It's foreign, and that's what's controlling us. This phony, phony monopoly game we're playing. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to be signing off now. I thank you all for listening. And those of you who want to support this channel, you could PayPal me on my channel, Spirit Journey. The banner's on the top right side of my channel. Click on it and follow the prompt. Any amount would be greatly appreciated. And I thank you for listening. Yes. And you can write your comments below. Should you have any questions or want to share information about this topic that I'm discussing. Peace, love, and joy to you all. Take care, guys and gals. Bye bye.